Before Angela and Michael, before Big Ed's awkward dates and Larissa's court drama, there was a story that started it all, a love story, or what looked like one. That became the first great scandal of 90-Day Fiancé. This is the story of Danielle Mullins and Mohamed Jabali, a middle-aged mother from small-town Ohio and a young man from Tunisia who believed love could conquer distance, culture, and doubt. It didn't. Instead, their marriage became the blueprint for heartbreak on television. When viewers first met them, it was easy to root for Danielle, the single mom searching for connection, and to admire Mohamed's calm, polite confidence. But what unfolded next wasn't a love story. It was a slow-motion implosion that revealed how fragile trust becomes when desperation meets opportunity. Began in the quiet of an ordinary night in Ohio. Danielle sat alone at her computer, the blue glow reflecting in her glasses. Her kids were asleep. Bills were stacked on the kitchen counter. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of her old desktop fan. She had joined a few Facebook groups, harmless places to chat, share memes, talk about family life. One night, a message popped up. It was from a young man named Mohamed Jabali. He was polite, curious. His English wasn't perfect, but his charm came through the screen. He asked about her day, her kids, her life in Ohio. And in that simple exchange, something began. For Danielle, Mohamed felt like attention and care she hadn't felt in years. For Mohamed, Danielle represented something bigger, an adventure. Maybe a chance to start fresh in a country where possibilities felt endless. Weeks turned into months. Messages turned into calls. And soon, Mohamed was calling her my love. When he proposed over video chat, Danielle didn't hesitate. She said yes. To her it was fate. To her friends, it was reckless. But love has a way of silencing caution, especially when you've been lonely for a long time. Within months, Danielle filed for a K-1 Fiancé visa, the 90-day countdown that would soon make their story public. When TLC producers heard about the case, they saw potential. A small-town American mom and a young North African fiancé. Cultures, ages, expectations colliding. It was everything a reality show could want. For Danielle and Mohamed, it would be everything they couldn't handle. The camera pans over the gray skies of Ohio as Mohamed steps out of customs. He's nervous, but confident, wearing a fitted jacket and carrying just one suitcase. Danielle waits near the exit, bouquet in hand, heart racing. When he appears, she runs toward him, but his embrace is brief. Careful, it's polite, but not passionate. To viewers, it's a small moment. To Danielle, it's the first red flag she can't yet see. From the start, their chemistry feels off. Mohamed is respectful but distant. He tells the camera that Danielle is different in person, and that he wants to take things slow. Danielle's friends and family sense it too. They whisper during dinners, wondering if he's only there for a green card. But Danielle defends him. She says people just don't understand their love. In private, the fights begin almost immediately. Mohamed complains about Danielle's finances, her hygiene, her temper. Danielle accuses Mohamed of not caring, of treating her like a burden. The contrast between them is striking. She's emotional, impulsive, desperate to be loved. He's calm, calculating, and at times cold. When the 90 days start ticking down, they both know the wedding is coming, ready or not. The producers frame it like a countdown. Danielle hopes for a fairy tale. Mohamed hopes for a fresh start. And the audience? They hope it's not a mistake. The wedding arrives. There are no grand decorations. No expensive dress, just a small hall, a few friends, and a camera crew ready to capture another TLC moment. Danielle walks down the aisle beaming, but Mohamed's expression doesn't change. When the officiant tells them to kiss, Mohamed shakes his head. He says it's against his religion to show affection in public. The crowd shifts, uncomfortably. Danielle forces a smile. Her daughters look away. That clip becomes one of the most replayed moments in the show's history. After the wedding, things don't get better. Mohamed refuses to share a bed with Danielle. He says it's because she needs to change her behavior. Fans interpret it differently. Rumors start to swirl online. That Mohamed never loved her, that he used her for a visa, that he was messaging other women the entire time. Danielle tries to save face, posting happy photos and defending him on social media. But behind the scenes, it's chaos. Mohamed is already planning his exit. He takes solo trips, spends nights away, and talks about moving south where it's warmer. Danielle begs him to stay. He says she's too emotional. When he finally leaves Ohio, the cameras follow, catching every tear, every accusation. It's no longer a love story. It's a breakdown broadcast in real time. The public reaction is brutal. Fans mock Danielle online, calling her naive. Others turn on Mohamed, accusing him of scamming his way into America. But beneath the gossip, there's a real woman in pain, and a man who feels trapped by choices he can't undo. This is the turning point. From here, the story stops being about romance. It becomes a fight for dignity, freedom, and reputation. The honeymoon period never arrived. By the time the cameras returned for the next round of filming, Danielle and Mohamed were already living like strangers. The Ohio home that was supposed to be their fresh start had become a battleground. Arguments over money, trust, and attention filled the air like static. Mohamed wanted structure, clean spaces, calm voices, control. Danielle wanted affection, validation, proof he still cared. When she tried to hold his hand in public, he'd pull away. When she asked for intimacy, he'd deflect. And then came the messages. Viewers remember the moment she confronted him on camera, waving printed screenshots, conversations between Mohamed and other women. Flirty, suggestive, undeniable. She shouted, "You used me!" He stayed quiet, eyes cold, saying only, "You need to calm down." The producers let the silence hang. It was uncomfortable television, but compelling. What began as a love story had become an unfiltered study in denial and pride. Each scene blurred the line between heartbreak and humiliation. Rumors spread faster than the show could air them. On social media, hashtags accused Mohamed of being a con artist. Others mocked Danielle's pain, turning her breakdowns into memes. But behind the noise, both were collapsing privately. Danielle felt foolish and betrayed. Mohamed felt trapped and vilified. He started staying away for days. Danielle followed him, sometimes driving for hours just to find where he'd gone. Fans saw obsession. She saw desperation. Their relationship had become toxic. Two people bound by paperwork and pride. By the time TLC filmed their follow-up, Mohamed had already made up his mind. He wanted out. When Danielle finally filed for divorce, she did it with one intention: to expose Mohamed's motives. But her first move wasn't a divorce petition. It was an annulment request. In legal terms, an annulment would erase the marriage completely, and more importantly, revoke Mohamed's immigration status. For Danielle, it wasn't about paperwork. It was about justice. She wanted him to face consequences for what she believed was a calculated plan. She told the court he'd never loved her, that he used her for a green card. The drama spilled into public record. Every document, every statement became tabloid fuel. Mohamed, on the other hand, stayed calm. He told reporters he'd tried to make it work, that Danielle's temper and instability pushed him away. He moved to Florida, taking odd jobs while waiting for the case to settle. Meanwhile, Danielle stood in Ohio, heartbroken but determined to be heard. In one unforgettable scene from 90 Day Fiancé, Happily Ever After, Danielle confronted Mohamed outside a courthouse. She threw a binder of evidence onto the hood of his car, shouting accusations as cameras rolled. He stayed silent, barely looking at her. That single scene defined their legacy. One woman's anger, one man's indifference, both immortalized by reality television. When the verdict finally arrived, it wasn't the victory Danielle hoped for. The judge denied the annulment and granted a standard divorce. Mohamed kept his residency. Danielle kept her heartbreak. And for millions of viewers, the scandal cemented the show's formula: love, lies, and fallout. When the divorce dust settled, both disappeared from headlines for a while. Mohamed found work as a truck driver, posting quiet updates from the road. Danielle went back to school, earned a degree, and began speaking publicly about self-respect and recovery. Years passed, and time softened some of the bitterness. They occasionally appeared on reunion specials, more civil than before. In one interview, Danielle admitted she no longer hated Mohamed. She said she forgave him, not for his sake, but for hers. Mohamed, for his part, acknowledged that things had gone wrong, but insisted he never meant to hurt her. He said he still wished her the best. For viewers, their story had become more than gossip. It was a cautionary tale about loneliness, hope, and how far people will go to fill an emotional void. Today, when fans talk about the early seasons of 90 Day Fiancé, Danielle and Mohamed always come up first. They were the original chaos couple, the spark that made the series must-watch TV. Without them, there might not have been a Big Ed, a Colt and Larissa, or an Angela and Michael. They showed that heartbreak could be compelling, that raw emotion could be entertainment, and that reality TV has a price. Behind the memes and headlines were two people who once believed they'd found love. Instead, they became a mirror for viewers everywhere, reminding us how fragile trust can be and how easily love can turn into spectacle. Danielle and Mohamed's story wasn't the first long-distance romance to fail, but it was the first to fail on camera, in front of millions. They showed the world how vulnerable people become when hope and fame collide. They turned private pain into public conversation. And whether they meant to or not, they helped turn 90 Day Fiancé into a global phenomenon. Years later, fans still quote their lines, share their clips, and debate who was truly at fault. But in truth, both were victims of their own expectations. Danielle wanted love that would heal her loneliness. Mohamed wanted a future brighter than what he had. Neither got what they imagined. Yet their story endures because it feels real, messy, uncomfortable, human. When the credits roll, you can't help but wonder if either had paused, listened, and waited. Would things have ended differently? Or were they destined to become the cautionary tale that every new couple fears becoming? In the end, that's the legacy they left behind. Not villains, not heroes, just two people who taught us that love, when rushed, can cost more than anyone expects. And that's why, years later, we still call it the scandal that started it all.